Chris and I are here. Thanks, Chris, very much for coming on. Chris is dog sitting at the moment, so if a little fuzzy head pops up, it's her stepdog Ruby. So yeah, so so please ask questions on the chat. Well, to say we'll try definitely to get to some of them, though you know, undoubtedly we won't be able to get to all of them because we've got only a certain amount of time, but we'll do our best. But it's lovely to have you all on the course. Thanks so much for taking part. And thank you very much for helping one another on the forums. I think that communication between everybody on the course is one of the best things about the course, actually. And I do pop in and have a look when I can and try to put my 2 cents worth in. But, often folks have got great ideas for everybody too. So thank you all so much for posing questions and also for answering them. It's great. So I will kick off by, welcoming Chris yet again. Thanks so much, Chris, for being here. This is the 12th time that the course has run, and Chris has continued to be active and stay active with the course and come on to these chat sessions and tell us about her research journey and what she's found, what she's continuing to find, and so on and so forth. So I sent her some of the questions yesterday, and Chris, there are a couple that have come in more recently that see if we've got time to fall back on those. But so I will mute myself now and let Chris come on and say her piece.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming in on this lovely sunny day. This is the second gloriously sunny day we've had in Scotland, and oh, long may it continue. Nice to see you all doing the course. I think those of you that are here have obviously got the bug, and it is a big bug. My parents both passed away, and that's when I decided to do my research. I do wish I had done it earlier, but it hooks you in, and you'll know from my little story, I definitely found some interesting things. I had a nice note from Sarah Blatter, who wanted to see the naturalization certificate. So let's hope that this is working. There we are. Can you see this here? So this for my Riepenhausen ancestor. I found his naturalization papers, which was obviously after he had come to Scotland, after he had married, and you'll see at the bottom there all the names of his children. So it wasn't until after all the children were born that he actually asked for naturalization papers. So when, I don't know quite how far you are on in the story, I better not spoil it, what happens. But so that's that, and I found that in Scotland's People. I mean, I honestly didn't have a clue what I was going to find about this Riepenhausen chap. And it's really been quite an exciting journey. I have some other photographs as well. Gary Blackford, I don't know if you're here, but you were asking, I made the assumption, and it's typical, I think we do this in family history, we make an assumption only for it to be completely and utterly wrong. Well, as far as I know, it's completely and utterly wrong. When he left Hanover, I thought it was that I couldn't think why. Couldn't think why he never went back. And at that time, when Victoria had come to the throne, she couldn't be the person of Hanover, so they changed and it became a German chappie. And I thought maybe that was what had sent him overseas, but sadly no, that's not what sent him overseas. What sent him overseas was his mother died aged 29. So he's got 3 brothers and she dies. And then I found out that his father remarries very quickly afterwards. So I think it's a case of a nasty stepmother, and he ran away to sea, and that the rest is history. Came as a cabin boy or a ship's member to Dundee, and then met and married Maria Preston, then became a ship's captain, and ended up in a nice house in Aberdeen when he retired. So it is quite a story. One of the things I did do just before lockdown, I went up to Aberdeen and I found his grave. Now, I think you'll see there's a picture of me finding my great-grandfather's grave in Greenock, and then I found the Riepenhausen grave, and it's not Riepenhausen, it's Hawson. So what have we got? This is their house in Aberdeen that they had at the end. He owned this house and several flats in Aberdeen. So from this poor little lad, escaping home in a harsh and bad life on a ship to become a ship's captain and own this lovely house was quite a thing. This is the graveyard. This is the headstone here. And there's a few names on there I didn't recognize. There it is. And the name is Hosson. That's quite confusing. So this also, just over 18 months ago, I treated myself to a worldwide Ancestry to see if I could find anything about the Riepenhausens, and still nothing. And then I remembered seeing that on one of the certificates that his Riepenhausen's mother was called Anna Sophia Kronk, Kronke. I put her name in, and this is what I found. And that was just astounding. This bit here is actually Anna Sophia. That is Riepenhausen. How on earth do you get that from Riepenhausen? But there you see maiden name Kronk, and there's the Kronke bit. And she was 29. And then it was Hinrich Christopher Rippenhausen. I mean, they never seemed to get, even in Germany, they weren't getting the spelling of this name right. So that was a huge find for me. And to go and see the grave was another, really quite emotional thing. I think those of you who have found graves will feel the same, that your ancestors, so there's a memento of their living condition. I think that was all the photos. There's the front of the stone, and his wife is there, and her sister is there, and I think they had a William who Riepenhausen, his son, who died at sea. They're all there. So that has been quite a find. That's been my sort of journey since we did the course. I can't believe it's 12 times that we've done it. So yes, I need now to get those little bits that I found translated, and at some point I would love to go back to Germany. I would love to go back. There's not many. I mean, obviously the forces are not a big presence there anymore, so I don't have many. You know, I think there's about 2 schools left. But I would love to go up to Austin, even just to walk. I don't think there'll be anything left. And a lot of their graveyards, they were built over. You know, they weren't sort of sacred ground. So I don't know if I'll find anything. But just to go and walk and see where they came from. So that's my story so far. And Tahisha, back to you.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I was just looking at some of the questions. got sidetracked there. Leslie was just putting in the chat about the census records, UK census records being what's going on with those, the older ones. So the 1931 census records, it's just the England and Wales ones, the Welsh ones that were destroyed in a fire. So we're okay in Scotland, but yes, that is the case for the English and Welsh census records. So I was just double checking this on the internet. Yeah, those were destroyed by fire in December 1942. So sounds like enemy action there. No proper census, as we'd call it, in 1941. So yeah, 1951 it will be the next one after the 1921 is released. So yeah, big gap for us all, sadly. So actually let's have a look at, so Chris, did you got all of the yeah, Debbie, 1922. I'm living in the past. 2022. I think it's Find My Past has gotten the work to index it, and they're going to be releasing it on their website in sometime in 2022. It's probably on there somewhere on their website. So, and that's for England and Wales, not Scotland. Scotland will be on Scotland's People, but I'm not sure when exactly that's going to be released. Yeah, Eileen, I don't know that. Yeah, but hopefully soon, probably sometime in 2022, I should imagine, because they're still going to need to do the indexing and getting it all onto the website. So taking a bit of time. So let's see, we've got, so Chris, you got through all of the things that you
Yes,
need
I
to
got
get
through
through.
the 2 that you sent that were directly for me.
Fab. Yeah, because there's been a couple of other things that have, I suppose, come on from that. Some people, she's curly way, some people curious about name change. So how did you know that this was your ancestor? Was that Catherine? Did I send you Catherine's? Makes sense that it was once you know that, but how did you find them in the first place? That makes sense, Chris. It's all right.
I was answering somebody in the chat,
I
sorry.
know. Dual thinking here. Catherine Hessian was, I'd appreciate insight into the name change in the case study. How did Chris know that this was her ancestor? It makes sense that it was once you know that, but how did you find them in the first place? I'm sure there's a reasonable number of questions along those lines.
Right. Well, with great difficulty, it comes out a little bit on the course. I think the thing was my grandfather's birth certificate, and that gave his mother as Riepenhausen, and that's when I knew this name. My father was Gavin William Hosson Patterson. My cousin is Timothy Hosson Patterson. That's the only one. That's the last Hosson left, and it was when I looked at that document of my grandfather's, and it said that his mother was Riepenhausen, that I knew the name was right. And then it was just a struggle. But I think you find one document and you latch onto that, and that takes you to the next document, and you can sort of cut through all the rubbish that goes with it. And then, of course, I started looking at census records, and on a census record, the wife was right, the children were right, the address was right, the dates were right, so it must have been him. And then the spellings just went bananas. I think I collected all the spellings, but it was definitely Maria Preston. Our mother had a boarding house, and then all these children, and then I tracked them through that way. So it's part of the challenge of family history research is finding, is this really my ancestor? And I think it's a great feeling when you do find them, and then to find the grave, that is kind of the pinnacle, that they existed, and here they are interred in the ground. So yes, keep searching, but the name search, the number of ways of spelling Riepenhausen, and I will never ever know why they changed the name. It had changed before the First World War. So whether Mrs. My lovely great granny Maria had got fed up saying, when asked her name, oh, my name's Mrs. Riepenhausen, what? Because and to spell it, and it went to Hosson, and that's the only thing I can think. We also had in our possession a ship's captain's trumpet, and it's got C. Hansen on it. Now that's one of Charles's sons, and Hansen, but we've got it. So it just was one of the name changes, and that had been one of my great grandfathers. So not my great uncles. So it's a mystery. But I mean, I feel reassured that all my ancestors are my ancestors, and you just cut away. Be careful of places, and I maybe, but places like Ancestry. I was quite devastated when I went on Ancestry, because you get bombarded by all these names and all these links, and half of them are not right. They've got you, and people are claiming people. Like on my mother's side, in relation to Robert Burns. Well, we're not. You just got to really, really be careful. But I'm reassured that the people that I have are my ancestors, and I think it's just having enough documentation, as it says on the course, enough documentation that you can say whether a census record or a birth record or an address or a post office directory entry, you can say that is my relative, or even a will. I mean, I've got the will, so that's a wonderful thing to have. Back to you, Tahisha.
Yeah, and as Chris is saying, it really is about building up that whole picture of an individual or a family, and getting the corroborating information from different record sets to help you know with relative confidence that the people or the family that you're finding are the people that you're looking for. Sometimes you can't do that. There's not enough information. The name's too common. There might be 5 families, given naming patterns, who all have children and ages, occupations the same, and you hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, sometimes it does, and sometimes you just have to say, well, I'm 80% sure these are the right people, but until more information comes to light, that's as for sure as I can be. Chris, somebody's asking, and this is, I think, a great question. Temp is asking about implementing the information coming at me without creating a lot of work I have to correct or do over. So talking about workflow, how do you note down things as you find them? And as this person goes on to say, there's lots of different methodologies out there to use, and people keep saying, do what works for you. Well, that is true. You need to find the thing that works for you, but
I'm about to
So
say the same. Do the
yeah,
thing that works for you,
yeah,
and it's trial and error. I mean, I kept a little notebook that I could portage what you take with me, and everybody knows I'm a keen fan of the Aberdeen book record book, the yellow one,
yeah. I think we've
and
gotten
I
to that
take that
point.
with me everywhere. But then I could never decide how to where to log it. So I've got Family Tree Maker on the computer, but then it's so laborious typing all the stuff in there, because what I did when I was doing my research, I printed off all the documents I'd found on Scotland's people, and I made files, and I made a birth section, and I numbered them. And I suppose that, I was a manager in school, so that was my sort of way of doing it, and that worked for me. Whereas, now I think most of it's on the computer. So I'm now having to decide whether to do, I've got Patterson family history and care family history, and then the Pattersons, I'll break it down. But then I've also got births, marriages, and so you've got the person, and then you've got to take, so it is whatever works for you. And I think my sort of look at it, if I have to leave this to a relative, what is the easiest way for them to interpret it? So think of it that way as well. The copious notes, they're not going to want to read those. So, to use that to, yes, when you're doing it, a scribble pad or whatever. And then when you come back, I mean, if you've been down to the Mitchell or you've been down to one of the family history centres, and then put your information where you want it to be. And some people, I decided to use the Anantafel. I think you talk about that on the course, Tahisha, which is a numbering code system for numbering your ancestors. But there is no one way of doing it. It really, really is however you feel best. And don't feel, I mean, I think all of us feel, I've tried this and I've tried that. I don't think anyone has approached it and stuck to the one way they're doing it, because there's always a better way. There's always a sharing of information, which is, as Tahisha said, this course is so good for, of just how to do it. But mine is just in files, on Family Tree Maker, and I tried Family Historian as well, because they give great charts that you can print off, which are very good. So it's a bit of trial and error, and then find one way. But once you have found one way, then I would stick to it, unless something really A1 plus star comes along.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say that I do different ways of tracking research as I go along. Kind of depends on the size of the question that I'm looking at, and that kind of thing. So, but I tend not to put in information into my family tree software until I'm fairly sure of it, because as Chris is saying, it does take a chunk of time to input things. So I'll have a Word document up, or Google Docs up, and write myself notes, cut and paste things. If I'm on Ancestry, I'll save things into the shoebox as a way of kind of holding things, and I'll go back to those. And so just kind of building up a picture, I'll write, on a piece of paper, write out a family tree, just to see if names and things like that, until I'm fairly sure that I've got the relationships and the information, and then I'll start inputting things into Family Tree Maker. I don't link my Family Tree Maker onto Ancestry, because I don't personally like how Ancestry grabs information, and uses it. Vicky, both Chris and I use Family Tree Maker to hold our information, and so yeah. So I know there's lots and lots of questions coming on the Q&A stuff. I'm realizing we've also got information from Janet, my shoebox is getting out of hand too. I need to go in and weed that out. So yeah, just because Sarah Draper had kind of the same question on the forums about thinking she would be told the way to do everything on the course. And yes, Mike, you can print off from Family Tree Maker. Yeah, and I suppose the thing is, what she was asking about, there's not one way to organize research. There's not one way, no one family tree site to go to. Yeah, and she was wondering, how do you know for sure which is your ancestor? As I said, I think it's a case of building up the information until you're pretty sure about it. But even so, often I think you can't be 100% sure. You can probably be 99% sure. So genealogy is not for the faint of hearted, and for people who want, this is for sure how it was, because people's lives, people are so slippery. People lie, people misremember. I know, it's just you can't rely on anything really. Tell us more about the difference between Ancestry and Family Tree Maker. Well, so you can create trees on Family Tree Maker, but it's I don't think it's as powerful as Family Tree Maker. Basically, Family Tree Maker, you can add references in your own format. It gives you a lot more power around the information, and how you output it, how you look at it, so on and so forth. So Sally's asking about great resources. Yes, at the end of the course, week 6, I provide a list of all of the information in the both the articles and the see also sections. So yeah. Eileen's asking about, do you have to upgrade FTM once you've bought it? No, you don't. I know people who are using Family Tree Maker from about 10 years ago, and it's still working quite happily. It's Family Tree Maker's a software that you buy. So yeah, it's just, it is what it is in that regard. Paul's asking about Family Tree Maker is much bigger than Ancestry. Well, it's a piece of software. So, I mean, Ancestry includes all of the records as well. So, as well as being a place where you can create your trees. I'm thinking on 2 levels there at once. All right, let's see. I've got some Q&A things. Oh, right, Bernie's saying, I understand 1921 census will be issued in June, July of 1921. Oh, right, okay, 1921, 2021. Kirby is asking about, is there a good place to find handwriting help on Old Scottish census record censuses? There's a fabulous website created by, well, the National Records of Scotland and so on and so forth. Let me find that. I'll put that link into the thing. Chris, do you want to answer some of these whilst if you can catch any of them while I look for that website?
No, I was just going to say about Ancestry. Ancestry links to a lot of other people's trees, because Ancestry is about sharing trees. Family Tree Maker is not, which is good, because then nobody can sort of steal all your stuff or do whatever. It's really, for me, it's a record. It's a tool that works for you. Whereas Ancestry, you share, and then they give you hints and tips, and then you can link to this other person's tree. So it's quite good for sharing beyond, but Family Tree Maker is just about your own interface and your own tree and your own records. It does link to family, and you can, as Tahisha said, it does link to, if you want to Ancestry, and they'll bring you hints in, but I just keep them separate. So one is purely for you, for tracking your ancestors, for producing worksheets, and well, not worksheets, sorry, work tables, spreads, reports, whereas Ancestry is for linking with the World Wide Web, and everybody and their auntie can put their tree on there, and then they'll match somebody in your tree with somebody in another tree, and then you can get together and see whether there's a proper match. As I say, that's why I think when I first went onto it, I found it so daunting, because you were somebody interfacing with all these people that claimed to have the same relative or the same, and you all came from the same place. No, they're very different, and be very careful with Ancestry. I suddenly realized that I hadn't made my privacy hard enough. So I think I'd put a photo up there of somebody at some point before I really knew. And of course, that means anyone can have access to that photo. If you put anything on Ancestry, people can access it. So that if you put all your documents on Ancestry, other people can access it, unless you go to the privacy area and make your photos private, or that your tree cannot be shared. So you do have that option.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Other folks are talking about things. Get off there. Somebody's asking about Russian resources. So I have to say that any time I have a place, a time period, a set of types of records that I'm interested in finding out more about, one of the key places that I go to is the Family Search Wiki. And they have usually a really good overview of the kind of the history of a place, the records, and so on and so forth, and where to find particular types of records, both online and in archives or libraries or so on and so forth. Yeah, yes, thank you, Jim. That's great. And then Jim's just put up a link to the Family Search Wiki. So if it's Russian records you're looking for, you could go onto that, type in Russia, and see what's available. So yeah, and that's the thing about the different databases, is that each one has specific records that are available, but Ancestry doesn't have everything. Find My Past doesn't have everything. Family Search doesn't have everything. And sometimes I think the challenge is knowing which resource is the best one to use. And that, it's certainly helpful to be able to subscribe to more than one database, but that gets expensive. And so you might check with your local library to see if they have when those reopen in the area of the world that you're in. To see if there's a library subscription available to you. Family history centers will, again, when we can go in person, have access, provide access to different subscriptions. And then try your free resources as well. Next week we're moving on to look at different record types. So we'll be talking more about where to potentially find different record types. But yeah, so hold on for that next week. But definitely, I think one of the challenges about doing genealogy is that there are so many different record types to potentially look at, and it gets actually quite, I think, overwhelming and mind-boggling about what to look for, where to look. And one of the things that I did when I was first starting out was I created lists of different types of records to look at. If I was, say, looking for a Scottish birth pre-1855, because I would think, well, am I actually looking in all the places that I should be looking in order to know that I've looked, or is somebody going to pop up and say, oh, but you forgot to look in that place, and thus humiliate myself. So I, just created lists and added to them as I learned more about different areas. So, so you might find that useful to do. But yeah, and you'll just learn more as you go through. Sandra's asking about a cheat sheet listing wildcards. Well, I think there's a fair number of them on the site, but unfortunately, wildcards are different for different websites. So what I would do is, if you're on a website, then go to the help section, and it's often quite useful to look for help on doing a search, and those if you can search on wildcards within the help section and see what they suggest. So Temp's asking about whether we have more digital files or more paper files, trying to go paperless. Yes, well, I really personally only print things off unless I'm taking things to, like, go see my mom or something like that. And even now, I'm starting to just put those onto my laptop and take my laptop with me and show her. But I tend not to print anything out. I'm saving them on my laptop, and then they're backed up onto my cloud backup system. So I have them more than one place. Chris, I know you said that you were printing everything out, but it sounds like you're not any longer.
No, I quite like having a hard copy. I suppose that's just the history of teaching. So, and I do quite like to have them there, and I love the organising of them. That's, I mean, it must be one of my peculiarities. Yes, and I think if you're going to go digital, you really have to be organised. You have to decide how you're going to make your files. Oh, it's the same, I suppose, if you're doing it with hard copies as well. But I think both are useful. I think both are useful. As you say, for an older generation, if you're sharing it with the older aunts and uncles, then a paper copy is the way to go. But I think, I mean, I think all my paper ones will be left to the Mitchell when I go, and my son will keep the digital copies. So.
Muted, so I was looking at the Q&A stuff. So many great questions coming in. There's no way that we can get to all of them, unfortunately. Oh, Chris, you're muted as well.
Sorry, I have to say that there's a few people saying, and I agree, it's wonderful having the chat and the question facility doing this on Zoom. I think this is the best that we've been able to do, for sure.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, we need 3 hours and people keep asking questions, which is great.
But it's lovely, but they're also chatting amongst themselves, which is super. I mean, it's fab. It really is. And you feel closer because it's live.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mary's asking about WikiTree on the Q&A, saying she likes the idea of having only one profile for each person on the globe. Anybody can input information. Yes, I must admit that I've never not actually looked really deeply at WikiTree. It's as Mary was saying, it's orange. You go to genealogy conferences and the people who talk about WikiTree are all wearing orange. And they are, I think, aiming to have a worldwide tree, one thing for every person, and people can input information. I know some of the people who are involved, setting that up, and they're serious genealogists. So, I think the intent is really good. And they have people editing it, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think it's a good thing, but we'll see where it goes. Anytime you get to, I suppose I always like to do my research myself, so I'd still want to be checking things on WikiTree, but great for hints. So yeah, let's see. So I'm just having a look here. Yeah, some of these are really quite full on. So actually, a number of people were curious about finding advice on finding a translator for German or Old German records. Yeah.
I found that hard. I approached somebody and they kept to sort of tell me how much it would cost, and they said, "Well, give me your information." And I thought, that's not quite right. No, and I thought, no. But I've just noticed on Facebook there's a new group formed to translate from German. So I'm just watching that to see sort of how secure it looks. And if anything else comes on, they say that's not relevant here. This is purely for people that want support in translations. So might be worth having a look on Facebook. But otherwise, I mean, I think it can be quite expensive. I think that's why I think I've put it off so far.
Yeah. I see folks are giving some ideas. Facebook groups, as you mentioned, German, Polish. Yeah, Google Translate. Although again, with the German, sometimes it's just getting your head around the exactly.
You can't read it.
Exactly, you can't read it. Maybe that's just me, but obviously it's not just me. So, and there are professional genealogy professional bodies who will have specialists who do particular countries, but can also help you translate documents as well. So things like the Association of Professional Genealogists and Researchers and Archives, AGRA, is English-based, and then there's the ASGRA, which is a Scottish-based. There's the APG, Association of Professional Genealogists, and then there's the RQG, which is the Register of Qualified Genealogists. So all of these have lists of people who can potentially help. Yeah, German pen pal with skills in reading old documents. That would be great, wouldn't it? We all need one of those. I certainly need one of those. Yes. Bernie's, can you say where to go for records before 1855? Well, I would go to Scotland's People, particularly now that they've released the Kirk session records, and I mean the church records pre 1855 in Scotland are crucial, but they only have a certain number on Scotland's People. But the Kirk session records have just been released, I think, on Tuesday. So go on and have a look at those. But yeah, and what I would also say is on Scotland's People, there are research guides for doing research in different time periods. So there's lots of records potential for pre-1855. But I just don't have time to talk about all of them right now. Or you can take one of our 8-week courses that goes into records, as Chris took. So, oh yes, the long trail. Records from the West Indies. Penny, I would strongly suggest going on to the Family Search Wiki and typing in West Indies. I know there's some good resources for the West Indies, but I can't tell you what they are off the top of my head. So, yeah. Let's see. So we are coming up to close to our time. So, let's see. Sorry, early on, Scott on the Q&A was saying it would be useful to highlight that indexes on websites are not a primary source. Yes, absolutely correct. Yeah. So different types of sources, your primary, derived primary, and secondary, which we talked about in the first week. So indexes are, I suppose, pointers to other records, and sometimes you have to only rely on indexes, but if you can, you should definitely try to find the original record that the index was related to. So somebody was asking about Ireland there. Why are records in Ireland so difficult to find? A couple of reasons. The government, in its wisdom, decided to pulp a number of the Irish census records for paper. What was that? 21 through 51? Now I'm blanking on which years they were. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And then some of them were just destroyed in, I think some of the census records were destroyed in the fire. During the Civil War in Ireland, a number of, the records were destroyed when the archive building was not the archive building. It was the local government, not local government. So I'm saying all the wrong things here. But anyway, lots of records were destroyed. The Church of Ireland parish records, a lot of them were destroyed. Lots of wills were destroyed, so on and so forth. So yeah, 4 courts. Thanks, Allison. Me, my other brain. But having said all that, there are, some good other sources that Ireland's been really fervent at trying to digitize and get online. So you can sort of work around the edges and recreate things. And the other thing is that the Irish government has put out their civil records, birth, marriage, death, for free that you can access. Somebody was just saying they were going to put a link up to that. Yes, Allison, if you could do that, that would be great. And because that's wonderful. You can look at those for free. And the 1901 and 1911 census records and the images are also available for free. So So increasingly, there are some good stuff, but there's no doubt. I mean, I have lots of Irish relatives, and it's really a challenge for me to find links back from the States to Ireland, and that's of course an issue for those of us who are from, you know, descendants of people who emigrated from the United Kingdom or from Europe or from wherever to the New World, to try to get back to wherever it was that our ancestors emigrated from, because it can be really difficult if you don't have names, places, dates of where exactly in Ireland that person came from. Or England or Kenya or, you know, wherever it was, you just know, oh, that person was from Kenya in 18, you know, whatever, and that's it. So where do you go with that? And sometimes that's all you can know. I think so, which isn't great. But sometimes you get lucky and you find records that help you go back. So. Right, lots of people still asking questions here. I was just wondering about our.
Sorry, Tahisha, someone's asking, will this be available afterwards, especially the chat? Because of course people are putting good references in the chat.
Yeah, I should get a recording of the text chat.
Oh,
Pretty
good.
sure that happened the last time
Yeah.
we had this. I will also get a recording of the, you know, the our talking back and forth. Now, what has happened the last couple of times when we, oh yes, that's true. Thanks, Temp. Yeah, do Control A and everybody can copy the chat for themselves as well and save it onto their own computers. Yeah, fab. I always forget you can do that. But what I have to do is I have to send well, they have to send me the link to the recording, and then the IT folks at the uni, I have to send it to them. They have to put it on YouTube. So anyway, it can take a little while. It can take a couple of weeks depending on how busy they are. So I apologize in advance if it takes a little while to get up to there, up to the link on the site. So, oh, Sebastian's wanting to see. Everybody wants to see the dog. She is very sweet. Oh, Chris, you should go for it.
Thank you for that. I've just done Control A. Brilliant. Also,
Oh, there she is. Yeah, she is. Yeah, so do Control A. Would that be the same on a Mac? So I'm using a Windows. So
yeah.
oh, there she is. There's Ruby.
I'm going to go.
Okay,
Listen, absolutely wonderful to, lovely to, well, to know that you're all here and supporting. Good luck, everyone. See you again
great.
soon.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for being there. Right. Well, I need to go as well because we're running up to the end of our time. So yeah, does anybody know how to do it on a Mac? Yeah, can't help with that. But anyway, I will Command A. There, try that. Okay, other ideas for people. CMD plus A. Right clicking on mouse. No, that doesn't work. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Well, if I can get the chat link, I'll try to get that up for you all as well. So great. Well, thanks everybody for being here and being involved with this. It was great to have everyone taking part. We will be doing this again on the 6th week of the course. I will have Graham along, and Graham's one of our genetic genealogy tutors on the postgraduate course. So we'll talk about genetic genealogy, and I'll also do a session on other genealogy educational possibilities that are out there. So, right. Well, everybody take care. Have a good weekend. And yeah, be safe. Have fun.